Welcome back to another episode of CRE, The Unspoken Truth. My dad, Craig Coppola, joining me. Thank you. Today we're talking about pipeline, which is every salesperson's dream or nightmare, depending on the perspective. And so I guess let's start with, I feel like, in my career, right, I've not been in sales. So I don't necessarily live and die by pipeline. I do at one source now because I'm working way more in sales. You have been. Every salesperson's manager wants to know their pipeline. Why should a salesperson know their pipeline and really embody it, live it, look at it every day? Why is it important for them to know their pipeline?
Well, let's use a different word. Well, let's use pipeline, but let's substitute a word: heartbeat. No heartbeat, no life, no pipeline, no business. There's the stat is some crazy stat. 75% of all commercial real estate brokers and mortgage brokers fail in the business and are out of it within 5 years. The number one reason they will tell you, oh, I didn't like the business, so I didn't do this, or I didn't like cold calling, or whatever it is. But the number one reason is they don't have a pipeline. If you have a pipeline, then you have a heartbeat. And if you have a heartbeat, then you have life. And if you have life, then you have a business. And then if you have a business, you can create a career. I say this, and I'm not sure I've said this on our Unspoken Truth, but my dad, your grandpa, was a great baseball coach. He was inducted into the Arizona Baseball Coaches Hall of Fame in his 70s. And in the night that he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, I looked at him and I said, Dad, you were a great baseball coach. And he looked right back at me with a deadpan face, and he said, I was a great coach. Then my pitcher graduated. And I thought about that for a long time. And I thought about that. I moved, I grew up in Southern Arizona, but I moved to Phoenix after college and playing professional baseball in the early 80s. And, I've been a great real estate broker, but I've had the wind at my back. I've been a great coach, and my pitcher graduates every, 7 or 8 years, and we have a recession. And I'm not a very good broker anymore. And 100% of that is pipeline. 100% of that, people who get through recessions have pipeline. People who excel and have great businesses have pipeline, and that's how you create a deal, really.
Yeah.
A career.
And if you're able, I would say this is the number one most valuable skill in any business, is the ability to create new business, the ability to develop new business and create a pipeline. If you're able to do that, you can have 100 problems, but your job, your career, your paycheck is not something that you're actively worried about. If you're not able to do that, all your other problems don't mean as much, and you're really just worried about building new business and building your pipeline.
Yeah, you know this as well as I do because you worked there for a couple of years. We invested in Michelle Heeb when she left her previous company and started Forward Tilt, and we were her partner. And the most incredible thing about Michelle Heeb is pipeline. She understands how to get business, develop relationships, and keep the pipeline going, regardless of whether there's a recession or not. Her best years, she always says, her best years are during recessions. And of course, starting a business and running a business the last 10 years, she's had 100 problems, but none of them have been pipeline. And that's a tribute to her as an incredible salesperson, and not just lots of people can sell, but to be able to sell consistently over a 10-year period of time, which is pipeline, which is Michelle. That's the most impressive thing about her. As I watch her work, and it's not that she closes one big deal or two big deals, is she does it consistently. And one of the things that I really pride myself on, and I say this, I tell this story a lot when I'm talking, publicly speaking. When I was new to the business in Grubb & Ellis in 1984, 85, the number one broker in 1985 at Grubb & Ellis was a guy named Pete Nelson. And Peter Nelson was a land broker in 1985. He was kind of the first guy, one of the first guys to create a little team. He sold a bunch of land, and he had this incredible year. And I looked at him and I watched him and I thought, man, I want to have a business like that. By 1987, 2 years later, he was out of the business. By 3 years later, he was selling prepaid phone cards in Mexico. And the reason was he didn't have pipeline. He had lightning in a bottle for 1 year. And by 1987, I knew exactly what I defined my career in 1987 when I saw Peter Nelson leave the business. And I said, look, a career is somebody who has a consistent pipeline over decades. And so I think I've had a great career because I've been doing this now almost 40 years and we've been successful. You know, the first 24 of the first 29 years Lee and Associates Arizona was around, I was the #1 guy. So 25 out of 30 years, let's say. That is consistency, and it's only created if you have a pipeline. And so you're generating new deals off of it. So look, we can hammer this down, but you got to get new deals all the time. That's pipeline. But it also is, and we talked about this on another Unspoken Truth, it also allows you to find out where you're getting your business from. The pipeline is critically important to stay in the business, but it's also critically important to kind of direct you and navigate you on where you want to head with your business.
So talk about the different stages of pipeline and what types of actions or types of things that you're doing to relationships or deals that are in those different stages of the pipeline.
Well, most people view pipeline as a transaction that you get, and that's really where our core product comes into play. You get a transaction, whether it's on the agency side or on the mortgage brokerage side, that somebody calls you and says they need a loan, or on the tenant rep side where they hire you as an advisor. And our core product, that's when the core product kind of starts happening. We take that and we smooth out the process. We automate, save a bunch of time. But pipeline creates before that. Before pipeline is not only how many deals do you have that you're working that you can close. In that piece, you want to know the data on what percentage of deals that I work on close. So, you know, I know lots of people who say I have 20 deals in the pipeline and they figure out their commissions and they wonder why every year they don't hit their goals. It's because not every deal in your pipeline closes. So if you start tracking how many deals didn't close, why didn't they close, you can learn a lot about yourself. If you have a landlord and you're listing and you get tons of tours, and at the end of the tour you get an RFP to get a proposal and you never close from there, then it's like, hey, we're not in the marketplace. We don't have the right space or we don't have the right terms. So that helps you with your pipeline. And then even going back, so I'm kind of jumping around, but in the middle of the transaction where the core and where all deals occur, that is one pipeline. In our business, in the commercial real estate business, having a career means you have another pipeline, which is where am I generating leads to give me deals that will go into my pipeline. So we track that as well. Who are our top 30 landlords that we don't do business with that we want to? Who are our top tenants are we chasing that we're not actually representing right now? And that's a second pipeline that you want to know as well.
And we've talked about this on another episode, but tracking time, right? You guys track your time, and different people on your team spend time on different parts of the pipeline, right? So, and I imagine working a early stage prospecting pipeline, lead generation pipeline requires a different skill set and different actions than something that, you know, someone who's working active deals that are, 30 days away from closing. Can you talk to those two skill sets and maybe daily, what you're doing on a daily basis to go after both of those?
Yeah, so we actually track 6. Most people track 5 segments of our business. But certainly one of those is, prospecting and deal creation. And if you're in the business of 10 years or longer, that should be in the 10% range, somewhere in there. As I'm later in my career, it's gone up again for me because I'm doing less service delivery. When you actually get a transaction, then we call it service delivery. You're actually delivering the service that you promised. That like Ray Kafka on our team is spending 75% of his time on service delivery. So that's closing deals that brings us money. I'm spending, 15 to 20% of my time generating the deals that go into his pipeline. So we have to do that. And then the third one is, how do you maintain your existing relationships? So all three of these: generating new business, service delivery, and then on the backside, the existing clients that you want should be delivering 70 to 80% of your business on, consistently once you've been in the business a long time. All three of those are pipeline. All three of those are critically important to a career. And when you're new in the business, if you're young and watching this, you're going to spend more time cold calling, prospecting, delivering business. And then you're going to get a bunch of deals and you're going to service delivery on them. Then you're going to look at your pipeline. It's going to go back and you have this kind of circle that's really never ending. Cold call a bunch, get some business, close it, go back, cold calling again. And your job over time is to take that and smooth that process out. So you're not killing yourself prospecting, then killing yourself doing your deals and going back. And it's just a never ending tug of war.
Is that would be, you guys have a team, right? So you're able to spend more time in your unique ability, yours prospecting or developing new business, Greg, service delivery. For an individual producer, they've got to do it all. And would you say, a seasoned broker, mortgage broker, someone who has been around for a decade or two, they've figured that out, where they are constantly developing new business, but also delivering, service delivery and doing the deals, and figured out kind of a daily, weekly balance for it?
I would tell you, you would hope that, but I don't think that really happens in the real world. There's a vicious cycle that's continually going, and they're always constantly, I don't have enough transactions, or I have too much and I'm doing too much service delivery, and it keeps going back and forth. One of the reasons we have seen teams flourish over the last 2 decades is because of that. One, brokers could never travel. I don't know if you remember, when we were young and we were traveling, I would get up really early. We were in Europe with the family. I would get up at midnight or 2 in the morning and work 3 or 4 hours, because we didn't have a big team. So I would, on every trip to Europe or wherever we were, I'd be working 4 or 5 hours before you even woke up, because you have to kind of do that. So one of the reasons teams formed is so that people could travel, but another reason is so that we could smooth out this process, and we can take people who have unique ability of developing relationships and other people who have unique ability of closing transactions and put them in their proper roles. None of that happens without data. None of that happens about who's good at what. And so if anybody hasn't watched our podcast on data, they should watch that now, and then bring it back full circle into the pipeline. And the pipeline is really not only the heartbeat, it tells you if you're going to survive, but it also tells you a ton of stuff on your data. This is why DealView is so important, because it does tell you lots of things that you would not normally know. You would feel it, but you wouldn't know it.
Well, and if you have more time prospecting, you can try more ways of prospecting. You can do different experiments. If you only have a little bit of time to prospect, you're probably going to go and do the one thing that you can get some leads from. And then you're not as diversified, you're not as well-rounded, whatever it is. Your business is really reliant on that one source of lead. So
yeah, there's a broker in our marketplace who's a technology broker. He represents startup technology companies, and the last 10 years have been really strong for that. But it's tough right now. Not a lot of startup companies are getting funding, and all of his leads have come out of Silicon Valley. He's going to have to change his business, and so as he changes his business, understanding how you can be self-reliant on one source of business. All the new deals coming out of Silicon Valley into Phoenix. Well, if that deal is over, then you've got to recreate yourself. And we all are always recreating yourself. I mean, that's impossible to not. Our business changes dramatically. The pipeline allows you to kind of see in the future, kind of see your future now. And I kind of said, maybe my pipeline is drying up because I'm not getting deals out of Silicon Valley. And so I could start changing 6 months before that happens. If I didn't have that insight, I wouldn't know.
Right. Right. You'd have a hunch, but that hunch might be a little late, right? It might be, oh, now I'm going to have a couple rough months before I, where if you do have that view and those insights, right, from a tool like DealView, you can see it coming sooner.
Well, and let's go back, now 10 years, but the recessions will happen. We've had our unspoken truth. Recessions will always happen. They're going to come. Being able to kind of look back at what kind of transaction volume you did, the number of transactions, where you made your money in the last recession. Those are the kind of things that really pay off for a broker that's going to turn this into a career. It's where are we going to make our money? How do we make it last time? How much money do I need to save? Because I'm not going to make nearly as much as I've had in the last 10 years.
I like it. So it does tie back to the other episode that we've done on data, right? And so pipeline going with data creates these different insights to where you can take different actions on your business, make different decisions, and help you build a bigger, stronger, more consistent business over time, right?
Yeah, I think the idea for a career in any business where you're 100% commission is you got to create a bulletproof practice. A bulletproof practice is a heartbeat, and a heartbeat is a pipeline. So if you can create a consistent pipeline, back to our Michelle Heap story, Michelle Heap is not going to fail. She's not going to fail because she has a pipeline. And if you have great pipeline, there are brokers. I'll give you one example. He's a dear friend, or he's been a good friend for a long time. We used to work together. He's been at CBRE for 30 years now. Jim Trobaugh creates pipeline. That's his entire job and has been for 30 years. And so his team lives on Jim Trobaugh's pipeline. And he is one of the rare people who that's all he does. He's the Michelle Heap version of our commercial real estate brokers. And those partners that have been with Jim have benefited from the fact that he can create business. I like to think I'm a business generator myself, and I've done a good job of that over the years. And so our team relies on me to continue to generate business. And how do I do that? I got to look at analytics. I got to look at how I did, what I did 10 years ago doesn't work today, especially as I get older. We just lost some business where they wanted a younger brokers, which was really interesting to me. They didn't want the wisdom. They wanted somebody with a younger pedigree. And so we have to kind of continue to kind of figure out how that works. And so pipeline allows you to do that.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. Any last words on pipeline before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I started with heartbeat. I want to end with analytics, data. So watch the data side, and then understand that, look, you don't have a career if you don't, don't be Pete Nelson. You want to have a career on this. So that means you want to have a pipeline, and all change begins by telling yourself the truth. And pipeline is the truth. You cannot run, you could put a bunch of prospects on there and the chances of them closing are zero, and you can lie to yourself, or you can put it on there and go, look, this is my real deal. And I think a lot of people don't want to know the truth. The reason why we started this podcast was to speak the unspoken truth. And the unspoken truth is, if you don't have a pipeline right now and you don't have an automated way of doing that, then you're fooling yourself. You like to lie to yourself to tell you how much money you're going to make and how long you're going to do it in a career. If you really want to know the truth, get our product, right? Get DealView and understand this is the real truth. This is the unspoken truth when you plug it in.
Yeah. When you lie to yourself, sooner or later, you're going to have to face the truth. And the longer you lie, the harder it feels. So the data helps you see the truth, right? Data numbers are unbiased. They just tell you what's in there. So great talking pipeline, heartbeat of your business. That's a good one that I'll remember for a long time. So thank you so much. And until next time.
Thank you.